What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the mythic items that you can get from vaults in Chapter 4, Season 4. As always, if you guys do find this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like some more, and comment down below what you think of these mythic items and what you think of this style of tier list video I'm doing. I'm doing something a bit different than usual. Let me know if you like this style for future tier list videos. And I am only going to be ranking the mythics you can get from the vaults this season. So we're going to be talking about the Foundations Mythic MK7, the Stinger SMG, the Charge Shotgun, the Drum Gun, the Shockwave Launcher, Zig and Choppy's Ray Gun, the Chug Jug, and TNTina's Kaboom Bow. So those are the weapons we're going to be talking about. We're not going to be talking about the Mythic Infiltrator Shotgun you can get from Island, or the ones that you can get from bosses that guard the vaults, because those don't really have any unique properties, or they're not unique weapons. They're just slightly better versions of weapons that are already in the loot pool, whereas these vault mythics are weapons that are separate from the rest of the loot pool. So that is what we're going to be talking about in this video. We're going to start off with the Foundations Mythic MK7 because I think it is the best one, and this gun is ridiculous. I doubt you need me to tell you about it. I think everybody kind of knows this weapon is insane. It's, you know, solid damage, not the greatest, but solid, and it has an incredible fire rate for an AR and very minimal recoil. Like, you would expect this weapon to have a lot of recoil with it having a ridiculous fire rate, but it has very manageable recoil. If you just pull down slightly, I think a lot of people even feel like this has less recoil than the Twin Mag AR. So it's like not difficult to use at all. And you have, you know, solid damage and an incredible fire rate. So you just rip through opponents. If you catch somebody off guard or you get caught off guard, you'll get beamed faster, they'll get beamed faster. It's just an incredible 1v1 mid-range weapon. It can do close range kind of well, but its hipfire accuracy isn't the greatest, especially when you're jumping. Like, you would expect this to be great as like a two-gun setup style weapon, and it does do fine there, but you just got to kind of keep in mind that like the hipfire accuracy on this weapon is not the greatest. If you're running around and jumping, it's basically the entire screen. But overall, this weapon just dominates medium range, and it's going to be hard for anything to beat it in medium range fights. It's very good. At longer ranges, I think I would rather have the Twin Mag AR just for that better like damage and range, but the Foundations Mythic MK7 is incredible, and you can't really go wrong if you're using this. So if you get this out of the vaults, I would highly recommend taking it. One other thing I want to touch on, I forgot to mention in the video, is I'm going to try to have gameplay of each of these items as I'm talking about them. It's been difficult to get gameplay for all of these weapons, though, because of the random nature of the vaults this season. When you get the vault POI, you just get a selection of random mythics. It's not like if you go to a certain vault, you're going to get the same mythics every time. That's why I said, like, if you get the Foundations MK out of the vault, I would highly recommend taking it. But that has made it difficult to get gameplay for some of these items, so some weapons I might not have as much gameplay with. The next we're going to talk about is the Stinger SMG. And the Foundations Mythic MK7 is S tier. I don't know if I said that. But the next we're going to talk about is the Stinger SMG. I think this is like B tier. It's not bad by any means, but it's just kind of not worth taking in my opinion because of some other items that we have in the loot pool, like the Combat SMG or the Burst SMG. If we were in a different meta where there weren't as many good SMGs in the loot pool, then the Stinger SMG might actually be a great pick. But it has the same damage and fire rate as the Gold Combat SMG, and it has a lower fire rate than the Combat SMG. So if you have a high rarity combat, you have a weapon that's better than the Stinger sub in a lot of ways. The recoil for these weapons are different, and I think the Combat even has more range. But that recoil difference, I think, is going to really kind of make or break this weapon for you. If you just hate the Combat SMG's recoil and you just can't get a good feel for it, the Stinger SMG also has like an okay amount of recoil for this mythic one, but you know, you might just personally have a better feel for controlling the Stinger SMG, and if that's the case, then sure, you could take this. And you know, depending on what other options you have out of the vault, it's not like this is a bad weapon. It's just not really something I'm that motivated to take because, like I said, the Combat SMG is just better, I think, and I would rather use the Combat SMG than this because I'm going to be able to use the Combat SMG every game, whereas like the Stinger SMG, it's certainly usable, but if I'm going back and forth between this and the Combat, I feel like I'm just going to be worse with both, so I would rather just stick with the Combat SMG personally. So that would be B tier. It's a fine weapon, but it's not really something I'm that motivated to take. The next we're going to talk about is going to be the Charge Shotgun, and I think this is actually the most, not really divisive, but I think a lot of people will rate this weapon differently because it is a very unique weapon and is a pretty difficult weapon to use. So I would have this at S tier. I think this is probably the best mythic in the game, up there with the Foundations Mythic MK7. But that's if you're good with the charged shotgun. If you're not used to using this weapon, or you're just not good with it for whatever reason, then it's probably going to be very low tier for you, and you would never want to take it. So it's a very, like I said, either hot and cold weapon. Like, you either love it or you hate it, I think. And with this being the only version of the charged shotgun in the loot pool, I feel like it's very hard for people to actually get experience using the charged shotgun. And get used to it and get good with it, because this mythic one is the only one you can get, and you can only get it by random chance at the vault. So you might go to a vault, get this 1 out of like 5 games, and then who knows what happens that game. It's just very difficult to get good with this weapon, I feel like, at this point in time. I was never the greatest with the charged shotgun, and I actually quit playing the season it was initially added, so I don't have the most experience using this weapon, so I'm not the best with it. But as far as just like numbers go, this is the highest damage shotgun in the game right now. It can body for 104 when uncharged, or 156 when you full charge it, and it will headshot for 181 if uncharged and hit a perfect shot, and if you hit a perfect fully charged shot, it'll hit for 205. I believe the sharp tooth shotgun has a damage cap of 165 on the gold perfect headshot, so about 40 more damage than a sharp tooth shotgun's perfect shot. And with the first shotgun augment, the shotgun can actually body for 200 when fully charged. I'm not sure if that is meant to be, or if that's going to get patched out or whatever, but the charged shotgun's damage potential is incredible. It's just weird to use a weapon that shoots on release. It's not a very intuitive weapon, I feel like, if you haven't used this weapon a lot in the past. It does really work well with shockwaves, though. You know, if you get good opening AR tags on somebody and then want to shockwave onto them, you can just kind of charge your shotgun as you're going at them, and it should be either fully charged or like close to fully charged by the time you get there. And you can just put it out. One thing I would recommend with this shotgun is, and this is a mistake I make myself, is a lot of people kind of get fixated on getting that max charge, when oftentimes just getting a shot out in general can be good, because like we went over, the uncharged damage is 181 to the head, 104 to the body. So it's like, it's not like you need to charge it for the weapon to be good at all. It's just the charge is very good when you are able to get it full charge. So I think the charged shotgun is very good, and if you take the time to get good with it, you're probably going to be like heavily rewarded in this meta. The next we're going to talk is going to be the Midas drum gun, aka the Jules drum gun, because this is actually the Jules drum gun. So in Chapter 2, Season 2, we had the Midas drum gun, and it was incredibly good and very overpowered. Chapter 2, Season 3, we got the Jules drum gun, and this was a more toned back, nerfed version of the Midas, and that is the one we got this season. Even though the game calls it the Midas drum gun, like when you look at it, it has the stats of the Jules one, and it'll actually say in the kill feed when somebody gets eliminated that they were eliminated by Jules' drum gun. So it's like pretty interesting the way they did that. But I do not think this weapon is good at all. I do not like it. I've seen some confusion with players where they don't really know how to use this weapon, like if it's an AR or an SMG. It uses AR ammo, but I think it's best to think of this weapon as an SMG. That was like kind of the way it was always used throughout Fortnite. And like I said, it just has not felt good to me whatsoever. And I did play in Chapter 2, Season 2 when the drum gun was OP. And I did play, you know, throughout Chapter 1 where just like the normal versions of the drum guns were incredibly OP. This one is not it. And I feel like over the years, we've gotten some incredible SMGs, one of them being the combat SMG. And compared to the combat SMG, this drum gun has 1 extra body damage, a much worse fire rate, worse hipfire accuracy, and a worse headshot multiplier. So I just feel like the drum gun is not a better SMG than the combat SMG. Maybe the drum gun has less recoil, or it might feel better to you because of that recoil if you just don't have a good feel for the combat SMG. But it does have a wider hipfire spread, making it like the shots more random, and it doesn't decrease its accuracy as much. You know, like the combat has first shot accuracy for some more like kind of medium-ish range fights. The combat SMG is also way better for that than the drum gun is. So I would not recommend taking this drum gun. I'm going to put it at like B or C tier. It's not terrible, but it's just really not that great, and I feel like it's not worth taking over some of the other mythics. The next we're going to talk about is going to be the Shockwave Launcher. I would put this at A tier, maybe S tier. The only reason I wouldn't put it in S tier is just because people have been telling me that they're having a hard time getting rockets, or they can't find rockets for whatever reason. But anytime I've gotten the Shockwave Launcher, I have not had a hard time whatsoever. Just, you know, staying topped off on rockets by eliminating other players. But, you know, just that might be my own personal experience. I've gotten lucky in the few games that I've been able to use it. So if you're unable to find rockets, this is just going to be kind of not that great. But if you're able to find rockets, it's really OP. because you have 6 in the mag, so you have 6 shockwaves, and then you have 12 reserve. So you basically can carry 18 shockwaves if you have the Shockwave Launcher and full rockets, and that is incredible. And that would be even more OP in the past, but this season with the on-the-go bag augment and just the spawn rate of shockwaves in general, I feel like it's not as hard to find shockwaves and stay topped off on shockwaves this season. But, you know, still, being able to carry 18 shockwaves at once is insane, or being able to carry 18 shockwaves in a single inventory slot essentially is insane. And you use it just like you would use shockwaves, but they just come out of a grenade launcher. So it's like, you know, it's not too much to talk about in that regard, but it's just an incredible mobility item. And I definitely recommend in team game modes having this could be really helpful, because the Shockwave Launcher is the only thing in the game that uses rockets right now. So if like, let's say you're using the Shockwave Launcher, you can carry the Shockwave Launcher. Now you don't need shockwaves, so that means more shockwaves to your teammates, but they don't need their rockets, so that means like more rockets to you potentially. So I feel like it's just like an easier way to spread the mobility out and make sure everybody has mobility if somebody in your team has the Shockwave Launcher. But even in solos, I love taking this item because, like I said, I haven't had a hard time staying topped off on rockets at all. So being able to carry 18 is nice, and even if I do run out, most people have shockwaves anyway, so that works as well. So I like it, but if you have a hard time getting rockets, I could see why this wouldn't be the greatest. The next we're going to talk about is going to be the Zig and Choppy's ray gun. I think this is D tier. I have not gotten to use it at all this season, but it's very similar to the Bender's shiny metal ray gun we had a few weeks ago. I was not really fond of that weapon. The Bender's shiny metal ray gun was essentially just a reskin of this to fit the Futurama collab. And it's just not a great weapon, and I feel like the ARs we have this season are even better. Like, if you're kind of going up, you know, close to medium range with the ray gun versus a combat SMG, don't like your odds there. If you're going medium range versus a twin mag AR with the choppy ray gun, I don't like your odds there. I just feel like it gets kind of outclassed by everything at every range. Like, it's not the best at any range. It's kind of okay at everything, but it's just not a great weapon. And when you're kind of faced with the decision of like, do I take this or the Foundation's Mythic MK7, or do I take this or the, you know, charge shotgun? It's like, why would you ever want to take the ray gun? And I think most people kind of feel that way because I haven't seen a single player using it at all this season. And when I've looted the vaults, I have not been able to find it either. And that's why I was saying I might not have gameplay of it here unless I get some between recording the video and editing the video. But overall, I just don't think it's that useful of an item. We had it recently in the game. It wasn't that good. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend using this or taking it. The next we're going to talk about is the Chug Jug, and I do not think highly of this item. I would put it at C or D tier. The Chug Jug, I feel like, was never that good of an item. Like, it was good if you found it like off spawn and you were uncontested, or like you happened to win a fight and you knew you weren't going to get third partied for some reason. But it can heal you to 100. It takes 15 seconds to use, and it has a minute cooldown after that. And so it's just not very good. It was, the Chug Jug itself was an item that was added in the super early days of Fortnite. I believe it was in season 2. And at the time, the only heals we had were minis, big pots, medkits, and bandages. But when you compare it to some of the healing items we have now, like fish and slurp juice and, you know, slap splashes, there's just a lot of really good healing items in the game. So it's like, why would you want to take this over slurp juice? You can maybe kind of argue that having it in squads is nice because you could just have one person carry it, and then, you know, when someone needs it, they could potentially use it and you have your teammates to defend you. But overall, I don't think this is a good item, and I would not recommend taking it over many of the other items. And the final mythic we're going to talk about is going to be TNTina's Kaboombo. I actually quite liked the Boombo back in the day. They reworked it though. So now it has unlimited ammo. It has 5 uses. And then every time you use an arrow, you get a cooldown to regenerate another. This is another one I would put at like C or D tier. It's just not that great. The pullback time on the arrow is incredibly slow, and chambering another arrow is incredibly slow. And if you forget to chamber another arrow after shooting it and then go to pull it out later and it's not chambered, your timing is just not going to be great. You could kind of use it as a pseudo sniper to get like solid, you know, damage in one single shot. But the snipers are in the game, and the twin mag AR is also good. So if I had the option of bodying somebody with the Boombo and then swapping to my AR and starting to shoot them, or just, you know, staying on them with my twin mag AR the entire time, I would rather just do that. I think the best use for this item is going to be flushing people out from behind cover, similar to what we had with the explosive repeater last season. and it does hit for 75 if you're able to do that. It has much better splash damage than the explosive repeater did, but it's very slow and clunky. Shockwaving and then trying to use this feels bad. I think it would really only be good in, like I was saying, a very stagnant fight if you want to flush people out from behind cover. In team game modes, I think my rating of it would be higher. I've only used it in solos, but I could see more potential for somebody kind of having the time to get shots off with it in a team game mode, because their teammates are able to like consistently apply pressure. And, you know, if you're using the boom bow and flushing them out from behind cover and then they're going into your teammates, I could see that being very good. So maybe at that point I would bump it up to like a B, but as a weapon on its own, it's not something I'm too fond of, and I wouldn't recommend taking it over some of the other mythics. So that is how I feel about it. I think the Zig and Choppy's ray gun, the Chug Jug, and the boom bow are probably the 3 worst. The ones I would highly recommend taking are going to be the charge shotgun if you're good with it. The Foundation's Mythic MK7 is incredible. You kill very, very fast, and you put out a lot of pressure in a fight. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of you kind of relate to this. If you're fighting somebody using the Foundation's Mythic MK7, it probably, you know, stresses you out a little bit, or you're going to be more scared in that fight. The Shockwave Launcher is also incredibly good, and if you don't really like the combat SMG for whatever reason, the Stinger SMG might be good for you. You might have a better feel for that item. It's not bad, but I just don't think it's that great either. But those are going to be my thoughts on the mythic items this season. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, which mythic is your favorite, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.